Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May 3rd, 2021 council meeting. Bienvenue à la réunion du conseil du 3 mai 2021. On va commencer avec roll call. I'll ask members of council to please announce themselves.
Michael Ternowski, present.
André Brisson, présent.
Jamie Lauren here.
Thank you, and myself, I'm present. Councillor Saucier was unfortunately feeling under the weather this evening, so she will not be attending. Item 2 and 3, la prière puis l'hymne national, on ne le fait pas virtuellement. Item 4, item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. We have a couple changes this evening. So under section 13, notice of motion, it'll be 13A, will be committee recommendations. And then we have under 11B, we have the presentation from Colliers. We're going to have a public question period right after that report for specifically that report. So we'll have a 2 question periods this evening. The second one being for all the other reports. Just to mention to those who are watching, if you're not familiar, it is a question period. So please state your name and the record in the question box. And we will address those. If you simply leave out your information and do it anonymously, your question will not be addressed. And we are also removing item 2 under section 20, the closed sessions, the verbal report about an identifiable individual. That will not be done this evening either. So with those changes, anything else to add, members of council? Seeing none, hearing none. We'll move, Conseiller Larin.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a clarification when you mentioned that people need to put their information in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Either Q&As, it's name and address. You only mentioned name. So I just wanted to make sure that they knew it was name and address to ensure that we have proper record.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Conseiller Larin. With that, moving on to item 5, motion to approve the agenda as amended. I need a mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. I'll call for the vote.
T'es muté, Mike.
Mike Ternowski, oui. Pardon, il faut que ça arrive au moins une fois.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. Carried. Merci beaucoup. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Conseiller Brisson, je crois que tu voulais discuter quelque chose?
Oui, je dois déclarer un intérêt pécuniaire pour 11H parce que c'est le rapport des intersections de la route 300 à cause que j'ai des terrains qui peuvent être affectés avec la décision. C'est pour ça que j'aime mieux déclarer retrait.
OK, parfait. Merci beaucoup. Any other conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item, adoption of the minutes for the regular council minutes of April 19th, 2021. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table, please. Moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Larin. Questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mike Ternowski, approved.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. Item is carried. Thank you very much. Item 8, présentation, il n'y a pas. 9, délégation, il n'y a pas. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. We have item A, proclamation, Day of Action Against Anti-Asian Racism, May 10th, 2021. Item B, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, March 18th, 2021. Item C, minutes of the Police Village of Russell, March 4th, 2021. And item D, minutes of the Russell Historical Society of March 8th, 2021. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. Those are carried. Merci beaucoup. Item 11, rapport des départements et comités du conseil. Item A, présentation des états financiers 2020, rapport FS 13 2021. Que le conseil reçoit le rapport FS 13 2021 daté du 3 mai 2021 et accuse réception des états financiers 2020 présentés par notre firme d'audit BDO Canada LLP. Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin.
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Bonjour, cher membre du conseil. Donc, membre du conseil, vous avez reçu dans l'ordre du jour les états financiers 2020. On est ici pour répondre à vos questions dans quelques instants. Je vais laisser la parole à Annick Blanchard de BDO qui est avec nous ce soir, juste pour vous donner un survol, les grandes lignes des états financiers. Donc, Annick, je crois que tu es avec nous. Je vais te laisser la parole.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Godin. Bonsoir, Madame Blanchard.
Bonsoir, merci. Merci, M. Godin. Oui, fait que dans le document, vous avez l'ébauche des états financiers qui sont bilingues comme par le passé. Puis vous avez aussi notre rapport final au conseil. So that report, you have both the French and the English version. So again, this year we conducted the audit mainly in end of March, early April, received full cooperation from management. Most of it was done remotely, but we did a couple of days in person just to facilitate receiving documents. So I'll just, as far as the audit, I'll just give a highlight of the results. So basically, we did the audit as we had planned and presented to you on February 1st, 2021. We increased materiality slightly, so we had planned 700,000. We used 800,000 based on actual results. Apart from that, I'll just skip some parts. So, okay, so you want to start with the statements?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll go to that's the one. Okay, so in the financial statements, the first report on page 2 of this PDF is the responsibilities of management for the financial statements. So the financial statements are not ours as the auditors, but basically they're management's numbers. So here, once the statements are approved, they'll date and sign that report, which is the next page. Then pages 4 to 7 of the PDF of the financial statements is our auditor's report. So it's very similar to what you've had in the past. The only difference is we're mentioning the fact that the contributed assets. So when there's subdivisions that are completed, the assets that are transferred to the municipality or the township, I guess the township haven't been recorded in the books. So the only entry that would be required would be adding the asset, adding the revenue. This is something that was noticed in a number of townships during the year in 2020. So that's the only difference in the auditor's report that you have.
Okay.
So basically our audit is completed. So assuming council approves the financial statements tonight, we'll be able to date the report May 3rd and I'll be able to sign on behalf of the firm.
OK, parfait. Merci. Juste demander, est-ce que les membres du conseil ont des questions à ce point-ci? Conseiller Tarnowski?
J'avais juste une question. Il y avait un commentaire qui a été that was brought up through the audit about unrecorded capital asset transfers, and so I assume that there was a plan put forth to address that issue. If I can just get a follow-up on that.
So yeah, we did discuss with management, and I'm sure they can answer. The plan is for them to pull the full list in 2021. So it's information that is available because in any subdivision that's transferred over, you have the agreement. The only thing, and it's with the timing, by the time we realize this in other municipalities, we advise management, but they didn't have time to do it for this audit.
Okay, anything to add, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. Donc, yeah, I just wanted to add just to reconfirm what Mme Blanchard just said, that we do have a plan to update these in 2021 to make sure that the full value of our assets is well evaluated and included in our financial statements.
Perfect. Merci beaucoup. Any other questions, members of council? Councillor Lorrain?
It's just more of a comment that we have the report up, but it's not in red, so I don't know if it's being shown to the public.
Okay. Thank you. Well, staff will have a look at that.
I don't think it could be read anyways from that. I can, certainly.
Madame Blanchard, si vous voulez continuer.
OK, c'est bon. Fait que la prochaine page, donc la page 8 du PDF d'état financier, c'est l'état de la situation financière, donc le bilan qui montre les actifs puis les passifs. au 31 décembre 2020. Donc, on voit les actifs financiers à 19,5 millions. Ensuite, les passifs à 29,8 millions. Fait que ça ressemble pas mal avec l'année... Ah, c'est la page d'avant pour l'état de la situation financière. Excuse. Donc, les actifs puis les passifs se ressemblent pas mal avec l'année précédente. Puis après ça, on voit la dette nette, puis les actifs non financiers au bas. Puis après ça, c'est sûr qu'on monte l'excédent accumulé qui est 134 millions. On a l'information en note parce que c'est vraiment pas tous des montants qui peuvent être dépensés par la municipalité. Du 134, on voit qu'il y a 144 qui est déjà investi dans les immobilisations corporelles. Donc, c'est pas nécessairement de l'argent qui peut être pour d'autres biens. Là, fait qu'on peut le voir à la note. C'est un peu ça pour la situation financière en fin d'année. À la page 8, ou la prochaine page, c'est l'état des résultats. Fait qu'on y montre le revenu puis les dépenses de 2020 réels, puis aussi le budget pour l'année, puis on montre le comparatif pour 2019. Donc, au haut, on voit les revenus, vraiment revenus qui viennent surtout des opérations. Ensuite, on voit les charges. Ici, on les voit par département, mais à la note 10, on les voit par type. Donc, si on veut voir qu'est-ce qui est salaire, etc., c'est à la note 10. Puis au bas, autres, c'est les paiements de transfert, surtout les subventions qui sont reçues pour les immobilisations corporelles. Donc, on le met séparément pour que ce soit plus facile de voir qu'est-ce qui est non récurrent, puis qu'est-ce qui est reconnu vraiment juste pour les IMO ou qu'est-ce qui est le plus long terme. Fait qu'avec ça, on voit l'excédent d'exercice de 7 millions.
OK. D'autres questions, membres du conseil? Non, on est correct.
La prochaine page, c'est l'état de la variation de la dette nette. Donc, c'est un concept dans les normes pour le secteur public. Donc, présenter qu'est-ce qui est la dette nette de l'entité. Fait qu'on concilie qu'est-ce que vous aviez à la fin 2019 et à la fin 2020. Je ne pensais pas aller plus loin que ça pour celle-ci.
Non, c'est parfait.
Puis, la prochaine page, c'est l'état des flux de trésorerie. Donc, l'autre, on conciliait l'état de la dette nette. Ici, on concilie l'encaisse. Fait que l'encaisse que la municipalité avait au 31 décembre 2019 commencera à l'encaisse au 31 décembre 2020. Donc, qu'est-ce qui est fonctionnement ou opération, investissement en mobilisation corporelle, investissement puis financement.
OK.
When we get to the notes, the first one is the summary of accounting policy. So in 2020, there was no changes in the accounting standards for PSAB standards. So it's basically the same note as you had in the past. And then starting on page 14 of the financial statements, that's where you get the notes with more information on some balances. I'm just flipping. I guess the main one that I would mention council should look at would be the note 13. As always, that's the one with the accumulated surplus. So showing what's in reserves, reserve funds, and then the other categories. So it's basically how that 134 million that I mentioned on the balance sheet, how it's made of. Yeah, and then the rest of the statements and the notes are pretty similar to what you've had in the past.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup. Anything to add for members of council? If there's Conseiller Brisson?
Juste que je suis vraiment heureux de voir que même dans une année quand même difficile et challenging, qu'on avait budgété d'augmenter notre dette, puis on l'a descendu de 3 millions. Fait que c'est vraiment encourageant de voir ça, là. Ça fait que je suis vraiment content du travail de notre équipe et de tout le monde, là. Puis,
OK. Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, M. Godin?
Merci, M. le maire. Non, donc, écoute, je pense que Mme Blanchard a fait un bon résumé des états financiers comme tel. Vous l'avez eu depuis depuis mercredi passé. Donc, comme M. Brisson a dit, moi aussi, je suis très content par rapport même avec les circonstances qu'on a eu les résultats financiers comme ça cette année. Donc, c'est une bonne nouvelle. Puis, je pense qu'on a beaucoup la croissance à remercier pour ça, mais dans le fond, on est dans une situation même, puis c'est reflété ici, on le voit que c'est positif. Donc, non, mais j'ai rien de plus à ajouter, à moins que le conseil ait des questions spécifiques par rapport à quoi que ce soit des états financiers.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, M. Godin. Merci beaucoup, Mme Blanchard. Bel ouvrage, comme d'habitude. C'est très, très apprécié à toi et ton équipe, alors merci beaucoup. If there's no further questions or comments, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Merci. The next item is item B, which is the Recreation Complex Update Number 2 Report PR04-2021. The Council receives the information report PR04-2021 dated May 3rd, 2021, and that attachment 4 Library User Group Questionnaire results be forwarded to the Library Board for review and comments and recommendations. I believe we also have some guests this evening. So, Monsieur Le Duc, Madame Guittard, I'll let you make the presentations and we'll go through the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody, members of council. Yes, I'm pleased to reach another milestone tonight. So it's the update that we've been waiting for because we will be able to look at the results from the survey that was conducted back in March. And I also invited our consultant Colliers Group to be making a small presentation as an update, and also to have a few discussion about the survey that was held, the public consultations, the live with the mayor. So those are all information that we wanted to update council tonight. So we have present with us Mr. Michael Paul from Colliers, Mr. Scott Oren, and Mr. Peter Ashley. So I believe that Scott will be doing the presentation. So if after the presentation we still have questions, we can definitely answer them. And also we could also have a brief look at my report if there's items that we have not gone through with Colliers. I don't want to be redundant here, so I'll let Scott do the presentation, and we can see after this. So Scott, you can start.
Merci, Madame Guittard. Good evening, Scott.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. It's been a while since December, so I'm glad we can give you an update on what we've been up to since then and what the community has come back to us with about the Russell Recreation Complex. So to start, we'll just give you an update on the progress on where we're sitting in terms of the implementation schedule that we had presented before. So I guess I just say next slide on the. So this is just the implementation schedule we had presented in December. So we thought this was a useful tool just to show you exactly where we're standing. So we are on track to for phase 1 and 2. Right now we're at the tail end of the design of the park and the courts, and that's been submitted to for site plan review this week. So we'll be going through those exercises to make sure we get site plan approval and continue on with the further procurement of some other pieces of that project, which I'll go through in our next steps, which is a little further along in the presentation. Then for the phase 2, which is probably the main topic of this presentation, we have completed our public consultation, and we'll go through some of those results and next steps as well as we go through the presentation, and we'll focus on the preferences that have emerged from some of those meetings we've had. So next slide, please. So just to give another progress update, a little more detail. So to date, we have brought on the architect and their team with landscape designers and mechanical electrical engineers who have been completing the drawings for phase 1, and the same architect will be completing the schematic design for the facility based off the community feedback we've received to date, so we can have more of a visual tool to proceed with some decision making later on. We've also gotten into some due diligence things to confirm some information on the site. So we've completed a survey for the park area to make sure we are sloping the site correctly and we're protecting anything we need to, as well as some environmental impact studies have been completed. And there's a couple other ones of those finishing up through the next couple months, which we're working with Nation and Site Plan as well to make sure we're mitigating any risks that may come from those. But I can explain a couple of those when we show the playground layout in a couple slides forward. And we're finishing some borehole tests to just confirm some site conditions and make sure we don't run into any surprises when we do the park or as we plan for the future design of the snow hill. We, as I mentioned before, we went through the community consultation. We'll have some facts and numbers in the later slides, but it went very well. We had over 1,000 surveys returned to us, and we reached out to over 40 community groups. So the feedback was great, and I think that's given a great picture to the community on what the facility may end up looking like at the end. We've also issued some expressions of interest to the community for local businesses to let the township know if they'd like to participate in, being part of the facility in one way or another, and the GCs and other contractors. We've reached out for local interest in that as well, so we can carry some local contractors and any procurement documents for to make sure we can give the local trades and contractors an opportunity to be involved in this project. And to date, I don't have an exact number, but I think I've received at least 20 emails from contractors that are interested to participate. So that's been great, because that was only posted a few days ago. And we're also starting in the next few days the operations and life cycle costs, high level costs for the project as well. So we're moving into some great stages in the project, so we can give you some more concrete information to continue through as we get to the end. So the next slide, please, is the layout of the playground and the courts, and just to give everyone a visual, and the extension of the parking lot for the dome. So we've added 50 additional parking spots with a couple of handicap locations, and this would feed right into a pathway system leading to the junior and senior playground areas and the basketball and tennis courts. So just as a bit of a high level, we do have that 30-meter offset noted on the drawing, and that's so we would stay away from the watercourse section. There's a watercourse identified on the site, and we are staying 30 meters away from that to avoid any sort of environmental issues with this project. And that information is also being finalized within the environmental study report, so we can confirm any other restrictions that may come up from that for future developments. But being 30 meters off out of that watercourse has saved us some effort and some headaches to avoid any sort of issues with development on the site. So,
okay. Yeah, Scott, sorry, we have a question. Conseil Brisson.
Yeah, it was just we were saying that the park was for accessible, like for but I see only 2 parking spots for handicap. So I was just a small comment that I would consider maybe having more putting there that are indicate for handicap, especially that the park is supposed to be for them. So.
Okay, good point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearn.
All right. So this is the playground layout that was submitted. So we can get into some further questions as we get to the end of the presentation. But this is the final layout, and this is what we will be presenting in a general contractor tender that will be going out in the next several weeks, so we can finalize that contract as well. So we're moving along fairly well, and I'm excited to get things starting on the site. So next slide. this is some examples of the playground and exercise equipment that would be on the site. We are preparing a pre-purchase RFP for the playground equipment to avoid any sort of long lead time delays to the project, so we can ensure we're going to meet our timelines. So I don't have the exact playground in the presentation yet, but this is some comparable examples of accessible junior playgrounds, as well as the rockin' slide, I believe it's called. The boat along the bottom of that presentation is also an accessible playground piece that we were asked about, and this is also in Ottawa, where it rocks and it shakes, and it's a very popular accessible playground accessory. And the other blue and silver playground equipment is the senior workout equipment that we've been looking into as well, and this will be laid out close to the junior playground area, and we'll give seniors and the community an option to exercise in the area as well.
Okay, we have another question, Conseil Laurent.
Yeah, I'm just looking at these designs here, and have we considered what type of base is going to go down for the entire area?
So the current layout is similar to the top couple pictures. I know this one because it's almost right across the street from my house. It's got the pathway kind of cut between the two playground structures, where one's a little more junior than the others, and the other side. But the wood mulch base there is an accessible material used in a lot of the playgrounds, and that is currently the plan to continue with that type of material for the playgrounds.
Okay, I have a concern with that, and I'd like to raise that here if that's the case, because I don't know how much more we're gonna see of this before it goes to tender and whatnot, and whether it goes to site plan. But we had a park just like this in Stiver, and it was taken out because it was built as an accessible park originally with the wood chips, and now the wood chips are gone and it's sand again. So why would we go back to a wood chip based surface when we had one and we took it out because we didn't feel it was a proper base? So,
Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just to confirm, Councillor Laurent, yes, you're right. We did take that one out from Stiver, and I remember that. The mulch is different now. If you go at the one at Richelieu Park, this is the one we have now. This one is accepted under accessibility, but I think I will need to just to reconfirm with Scott, because this is not exactly the surface that we wanted. So we could have another discussion. But the one that I was discussing with with two other townships is the one that is poured down. It's like a rubber material that they pour on the ground. So, and I know it's a lot more expensive, but this is the one that I wanted to look into. So I can reconfirm this with Scott tomorrow. But definitely, yeah, this one I do not want the mulch. But like I said, we do have the one in the Richelieu, and we don't have any issues with that. I guess they did change the material in the meantime, and it's not exactly the same kind of the same wood chip that they use, because I remember at Stiver it was collecting water and it was getting like really damp, and it would never dry, and it was almost like molded, like mold would grow on that. So yeah, I remember those days. Yeah, so just to confirm that I want to see the a price, a quotation for the rubber material to be poured on the ground.
Okay, thank you very much, Madame Guittard. I have to say that I've been at the accessible park in Champlain Township, Sasha's Park. That's what I sort of envision being. That was, you know, when I look at the equipment that's on the slide deck, and when I look at the equipment that in Sasha's Park, it seems completely different. So I think, yes, we do have, you know, there are minimum standards for accessibility. But I think that we have to look beyond the minimum. Obviously, there's costs associated with that, and definitely we'll have to have further discussions if the budget needs to be increased. But I think we have to have some further investigation of that. Monsieur Leduc?
I need to clarify. The last month and a half we've been discussing this. We've been talking about a rubber flooring. I'm sorry, Scott, if they may be cut and they put in a hard place right now, but to Councillor Diane's question, it's supposed to be a hard flooring, not a mulch flooring.
Okay. Merci, Monsieur Leduc. Conseiller Brisson, and then back to Conseiller Lorrain.
Yeah, it was just also to mention that there's in Marionville, that has been a few years now, that there's that special mulch that is supposed to be accessible, and it's not the same as it was in Russell. So it's been there, what, 4 years now, I think?
Well, more than that, about 5 years, 5-6 years now.
Pas 6 ans, because it was whenever I was on council, and it's been this year 6, so
5.
but at least 4 or 5, yeah. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll definitely make sure that, you know, the consultants and the township are on the same page. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, my only other comment is we're building an accessible park. Has the accessibility committee weighed in on this at all and made any recommendations?
Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, the accessibility committee was presented the park idea back in February. They were notified of this. They were also part of the survey. So yes, they were. We did get their feedback on this one. I was part of the. Their February meeting, if I remember correctly, and I did update this when I did my update, I think in the end of February, March.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, because that's when the suggestion of the boat was brought out. But we were not given the option of having the other rubber surface. And I think it would be a good thing if it would be a bit more rubber than just the chipwood. But the committee have seen almost like this picture, because nothing is confirmed, but as I was saying, the boat was really recommended at that time.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. Okay, we can keep going, guys.
Okay, all right. We'll have some further discussions about the base for sure, and then we'll give Celine can come back to you with what those conversations were. So the next slide is a summary of the community feedback, just some high level stats, and then the next slide will give a bit of a graph on what the main question in terms of what kind of facilities the community would enjoy. So just to summarize again, we contacted over 45 user groups. This included a lot of minor hockey user groups. Obviously, there's quite a few of them in the committee. They include figure skating, broomball. We also reached out to a sledge hockey association contacts, which had some good insight on accessibility, which was great. And as well as theater users, library stakeholders, and the township's ownership operation staff, and local community groups. And they provided some very good feedback and some insight into what the community may prefer in the facility. We also completed questionnaires, which, as you can see, were over 1,000 responses back, which was amazing, and that was great for us to again paint a picture of where the facility may end up. We also performed 2 public consultation sessions. One was in March 3rd and one was March 10th. March 3rd was an English session, and March 10th was a French one. So that leads into the graphs on the next slide, which can summarize kind of the, oh, sorry, this isn't, so the slides are a little, so sorry, I thought the next slide was the graph. So the community feedback summarized the interest, and it was the pools, multiple arenas, and a gymnasium came up, but that was also supports kind of a general meeting community area for performing arts and community spaces to hold events. And there was also a lot of requests for storage, so there'll be some need for some creative solutions for that, as well as some considerations to some accessibility and sustainability options for the facility. So, sorry, the next slide is the summary of the results from the 1,000 surveys that notes to rate each item and how important they would be to include in the recreation center. So the visual focuses on rates at 1 to 5, and just looking at the 5 to start, the pool had an overwhelming favor in terms of the one of the key components of the facility, which is followed up by arenas, and then the library and the performing arts in the 3rd and 4th spot. So there was a lot of focus on the pool and the arenas in general. I think just that came with just having more user groups, and the pool itself. It seems like quite a big preference when we were talking to some of the user groups, and the arenas had substantial feedback and are used for more than just hockey, but the figure skating and the broomball and some other user groups had a lot of feedback on those. Unfortunately, the library and the performing arts didn't have as much community feedback on those, but the feedback we did receive was useful and was included in the final report, which I believe would have been shared with yourselves to review. And is there any questions on that before we wait till the end, I suspect, and then we can discuss a little further into that?
Any further questions, members of council? No, I guess we can keep going, Scott.
So we'll talk a little bit about the next steps, and then we can see if there's any final questions. So the next slide, please. So that the next steps now for phase 1 is to complete the site plan review, as well as issue the pre-purchase for the playground equipment, as we previously discussed, to avoid any large long delays to getting that equipment. And then we'll be shortly after that, as site plan review progresses, we'll be issuing the general contractor RFP to do the complete scope of work, and we'll carry the cost for the pre-purchase in their contract, so that'll be covered as well and under their responsibility once that's finalized. And then phase 2 is to complete the draft schematic design for review, and then start proceeding on the operational and life cycle costs for each component of the facility. That's what we'll be focusing on the next couple months. And then that's next slide is just the questions. So that's the overall update on our progress to date. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much, Scott. I guess a question for Monsieur Leduc or Madame Guittard, is this slide going to be available on our website or sent to members of council so that we can share it with interested individuals? Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So you're talking about the presentation from
Yes.
Colliers? Yeah, we could definitely put that on the website. That's not an issue.
Okay, perfect. We just want to make sure that
Sure.
Everybody has access to the documents. Monsieur Leduc, yeah, go ahead.
Member Council, we have a new website. It's got new restrictions for accessibility. It's no longer a dumping area of existing documents. It has to be transformed from software to another way of showing the screen. So it may not always as easy as before to just put a document on a website. So now this has to be transformed. So there might be delays here of a few days before this can be put up on the website.
Yeah, no, that's understandable, Monsieur Leduc. And if we could just get the slideshow sent to us via email, that way if anybody has any requests for it, we can always forward it along to the residents as well in the meantime. Any questions, comments, members of council?
Can you see me, Mr. Mayor?
Sir, okay, there we go. Go ahead, Councillor Tonoski.
So I just had a question. So there were some comments that were brought up earlier on that I just want to confirm that we are checking with all the correct associations and requirements to make this fully accessible, and to also ensure that we're doing everything we can so that the facilities and the parking and everything else like really meets the requirement of accessibility by all standards or at the highest standards in Ontario.
Sorry, you cut out on my end, Councillor Tarnowski.
Sorry, I'm just asking that we are verifying that. I'm a little concerned that we as councillors are asking questions pertaining to accessibility of the type of, of ground there is and the number of accessible parking spots. Like, I'm not a subject matter expert, so I would expect that we are going to the highest standard in Ontario. I just need confirmation of that.
So I know we have a minimum standards in Ontario. I don't believe there is a maximum standards or the highest standards. I think that's whatever council decides to put in place. But Madame Guittard, I'll let you comment on that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Just maybe to reassure Councillor Tarnowski, the whole site plan submission is also shared with the Accessibility Committee. And like I've mentioned before, the whole project went to the Accessibility Committee and we did gather all their comments. So it does go, like we said, the submission is gone to Planning Department. So everything is verified at that level, and Planning Department do share the submission with the Accessibility Committee. So I think we're pretty diligent on that part. And I'm sure if there's anything that we're not respecting as per the provincial regulations, it will definitely be brought up. And definitely we will look into having more spaces. Like we said, we do meet the minimum requirement, but we can always do more. So that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Conseil Laurent?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, you said that planning sends these out to the Accessibility Committee.
Yep.
And the committee reviews these? I just want confirmation that that is actually happening. I wasn't aware that that was part of those packages.
Madame Guittard, Madame Tremblay, maybe you want to throw 2 cents in there?
Yes, good evening. So that's been the process for, I would say, 2-3 years. Every site plan is sent to the Accessibility Committee for review.
Okay.
And they meet what, every 2 months?
Every 4 months. But for the site plan, the committee receive the site plan, and the members have a look at it, and if there's something that they notice that they consider a suggestion for it, they send it back to Mrs. Tremblay. But as you're saying this, it would be good that those slides be sent to the committee, especially the one for the park and everything, to see the new diagram that is more final, to have if there's any comment from them. But that's how it works, because since we're not meeting often enough, we don't want to delay any project, but all site plans are coming to us. Yes.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup pour la clarification. Go ahead, Conseiller Laurent.
Yeah, my other comment is I want to agree with Councillor Brisson on the parking spots. I mean, we have an accessible park there, so I know minimum standards for that area are probably 2, but we should be making sure that we're leaving probably more towards 5 or 6 spaces at minimum, because it is an accessible park that's going in.
Thank you very much, Conseiller Laurent. I have to admit that, one thing that I found out when I went to the grand opening of the Sasha's Park was it was in the middle of a new development, and there was actually a lot of homes that were sold that had children with accessible needs, and that was one of the big selling points. So us building this might actually attract families with accessible needs. So we have to keep that in mind. So there definitely has to be more parking available for accessible spots. I see Mr. Ashley has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Peter Ashley. I'm with Collier's Project Leaders. I just wanted to clarify that the site plan submission that was submitted on Thursday, the 29th of April, is the most recent version. So if that's the one that's being submitted to the Accessibility Committee through the planning office, that will have the most up-to-date design of the park, and this slideshow may not be as up to date as those designs. Submitted. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Lorrain?
When would we actually see a copy of that site plan then, if what's being shown here isn't the most accurate or up to date?
Anybody want to take that one? Madame.
When I say we, I mean council.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Normal process, Madame Tremblay, site plan doesn't come to council, correct?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Mayor. Site plan don't go to council, neither to planning committee. However, we do circulate, and if Madame Guittard and Monsieur Leduc agree, I don't have any problem to include you as part of the circulation for the site plan, so that you could have the latest version of the site plan application and all the detail as well, the same as what we would review as part of the planning application. You could easily be included in the circulation package.
Okay, thank you very much. I think members of council would like to be included. Any other questions? We can continue. Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So I think you have no more questions for Colliers.
Monsieur Leduc?
I'm a little surprised, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I was expecting questions from the survey results. I wasn't thinking we'd be spending so much time on the park. I was expecting more council questions on the results. So I'm questioning if council have any initial reaction to the survey results, any surprises, anything to guide us to work on something or pay attention to. So that's kind of the purpose of sharing with you all these results. So.
Okay, thank you, Monsieur Leduc. I'll make my comments and then I'll share for members of council. The things that jumped out at me was the fact that over 45 groups participated, which was fantastic. But there's also a good, about 20 or 25 did not participate, and I found that a little bit unfortunate that all these user groups did not participate. I was hoping for much more public feedback. We're looking at the biggest project in Russell Township history. Therefore, I think that, more participation would have been better. But in regards to the survey results themselves of what was received, I was not surprised. I think that's pretty much what I was expecting as far as results go. So I'll just, members of council, I saw all three hands go up. So Councillor Tarnowski, Conseiller Lorrain, and Conseiller Brisson.
Well, it's interesting, Monsieur Leduc. When we and at our last election, when we were going around asking questions, a lot of these results, like exactly as they came out here, I had no surprise. There was no surprise. As a matter of fact, my comments were in the discussion is ask if anyone was surprised with the results, because I quite frankly it's pretty much in line exactly as what I had expected. So, and I'm very happy with the report, and I'm looking forward to getting this particular PowerPoint slide or the updated version of it, because that wasn't as part of our package. So that would be nice to get. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tarnowski. Conseiller Lorrain.
Yeah, I guess, for me, I guess the question is, are you asking Monsieur Leduc if we're to put our 2 cents in on the actual complex site itself, or was it just the results that you're talking about? Because I didn't think we were giving anything like that today. And when we talk, I see you shaking your head, so yeah, that's fine. schematics that we talk about that are in the next steps. If you go back one, well, in the slideshow, it talked about next steps and talked about schematics of the actual complex. Is there something coming to council to determine what's actually going into this building that we're building, or is the schematics piece going to happen first? I guess I'm trying to understand when we are going to be involved in terms of, is it 2 arenas, 3 arenas, a library, and everything inside? Is it is there going to be a cafe, a snack bar, a gym? All of those types of decisions, is that something that's coming back to us before it goes to tender or RFP or anything like that? I just want to make sure we're not missing something.
I can answer that. The schematic design will be based off kind of the full facility. So we'll assume it's going forward with the 3 arenas, the pool and the library and everything. So we'll lay it out as on a schematic level as a full facility, and based off that schematic, we'll develop some high level construction and operational life cycle costs, which will help drive hopefully drive your decision along with the community feedback on what pieces of the facility you may move forward with. If all of it, great. If you need to, we kind of termed it as a la carte pricing, so we'll price it, 1 arena and is this much, 1 pool is this much, 2 arenas is this much. So you kind of have those numbers to judge on a higher level costs, and then the next phase of the project will involve further consultation and design work into the final facility. So these original schematics are more or less a guideline to help drive some of the costing and life cycle costs to help council determine some finality to what the facility may end up being in the next phase.
The timelines for that, Michael Paul with Colliers, the timelines for that is around July timeframe. That's when you'd be making a decision on those components and understanding the cost for each of them.
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Leduc?
I want to be clear, the RFP that you saw in the presentation is to the general contract for the RFP was for the park itself. It was not for the rec complex. So we're quite far away from a general contractor contract. So we're far away from that. Mrs. Guitar and I discussed this afternoon, late this afternoon, so we did not have a chance to discuss with Colliers, but we're going to be asking questions about what kind of hypothesis are you looking for when you design a schematic design. So we may need to come back to council in either the last minute meeting in May or early first meeting of June. Maybe if Colliers needs, okay, well, what size is this, what's in there or not, we may have to come back to council and get some direction further before we proceed. So tonight was not about that, it was more about the survey results. But from our discussion with Colliers, we'll certainly have to come back to council and say, okay, what's in it, what's not in it right now, and so we can help them design some basic schematic design. So we have to discuss that tonight, but we'll be back in front of council soon to ask some question regarding this, yes to that, or maybe this, maybe that. So on top of what Scott had already answered about costing and operational costs and everything else. So we'll have to be back.
Okay, thank you very much, Monsieur Leduc. Monsieur Laurent, excuse.
So should we be sending you, Monsieur Leduc, and Madame Guital, our thoughts on stuff, considering what was presented in the user group results and the public consultation results and all of that stuff? Because there's a lot that came out of that, as well as stuff that I've heard from the public and whatnot. And I would hate for something to be done or designed or created, and then all of a sudden, well, had we known this 2 months ago, we could have included it, versus no, now we have to change change this around to that, and we can't do it, it's going to cost more money. I just want to make sure we're doing things at for us, for councillors, when do we put in the information that we've been given or that we would like to share if needed?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guitar?
I think now is the time to share what you've got. You've read those comments. So maybe some things you want to highlight is really important to us. again, at one point in time also, we'll have to come back to council to say, okay, is this a 25 million, 30 million, 35, 40 million dollar project, so that we know what to design? There'll be that question soon coming, because we were hoping to delay that a bit, but because you asked for operational costs and they need to have a better idea of what's in there first. So it's kind of the egg and the chicken scenario, what comes first. Yes, your comments about those survey results and some of the issues you saw there. If you don't wish to say that tonight, that's fine. But if you want to send us something so we can really pay attention to some of those details, sure. Anytime, ideally this week. I think Colliers wants to proceed with the schematic design as soon as possible.
Okay, I think from a planning perspective, I know it's difficult when you don't know exactly what we're looking at. I think that the reality is that a lot of this will be determined by cost. And I think that we basically, like we did when we did our grant application, we go for the Cadillac. If it's going to be à la carte, so give us the scenario of everything included. What's the costs, operational and construction costs, and then, as you say, à la carte, where we start chipping away. You get rid of this, you get rid of this, because I think that has to be part of the discussion with the public as well. That has to be public engagement, right? Right now, we're asking all this feedback from residents, but when they're actually faced with those costs, they'll be better positioned to say, well, you know what, I really want this, but I'm willing to, not go as hot or as big on this portion if it means that, there's going to be some wiggle room there with residents. Everybody wants the Cadillac, but maybe they can't afford the Cadillac, and maybe we take something a little bit cheaper. But at least if we have that information as to what's going to cost our operations and constructions and piecemeal, then we'll be better positioned, I think, to get public feedback and members of council to make those decisions. Conseil Laurent?
Can I ask that we also have operational costs of current facilities be included in that discussion? Because, it's one thing to say that the cost of 3 arenas together is X, but understanding that if you're eliminating the other 2 operational costs, what is the actual incremental operational cost that we're talking about, and not just the overall cost of the information. So we know what is incremental to what our current is, and whether or not there's even a savings there potentially. So that's also talking to library services as well. We're talking, if there's a library going in, what is that operational cost today? What would it be tomorrow with this facility? So, and obviously the pool, we don't have a current pool, so we can't do the offset of, and we don't have a current indoor pool.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we understand that. So that's all I'm asking, is to make sure we have all of the information when it comes back to us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We don't have an indoor pool, but we have an exterior pool, and that's going to be part of our discussions, right? The existing facilities that we have, what are we going to do with those, and how are they going to incorporate into our decision making? So yes, definitely, we have to have all the figures and the facts. Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, one thing that I know that a member of one of the committee did mention, and I'm agreed, was that the questionnaire was a bit focused on what to have in it. I take, for example, the auditorium was mentioned, but not for the gymnasium. So whenever they arrived to rate, you didn't have the chance to rate gymnasium, because if you have not thought about it, it was not taken into account. And sometimes it could be, I know that it was mentioned that, they're using some in school, but if, take for example, if we have one gymnasium, we might have more people for practicing for, take for example, like tennis, even for, or gymnasium, like gymnastic at a higher level. So that's one point that was mentioned, that it didn't left that whenever they had new suggestion, those new suggestions couldn't be tested with the others, because if they not thought about it. I have a second comment. Also, one thing, it was just to take in consideration, maybe having some talk with the school board. I know at one time there was some discussion that the high school in Embrun was having some intention of moving close to there. If it could be incorporated a bit like in Orleans, it might be something to see.
Okay.
If they need to, so just a suggestion to.
Thank you, Conseil Brisson. I know that Monsieur Leduc and myself have had those conversations with some school board representatives. We are further along in the process. So we could open the lines of communications again and saying, okay, we are really moving forward with something in the next 2 years. Now's the time to, state if you're interested, and if they're not, they're not. But at least I think we can just send them off a little note to reopen that comment, Monsieur Leduc. Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. If I can just add to this comment from Councillor Brisson, the survey was also sent to all the school boards from the township and all to the every school principal in the 9 municipal schools. So they all received the survey. So at least they're aware of the project from the township.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, members of council? If there are none, we'll move on to the question period. So just a reminder, this is a question period. It's not a comment period. So we do have a question here. Mr. Brian Young, 200 Equinox. Will the park meet CSA Z614 standards? So I'm not familiar with the standards. I'm not sure if anybody from Colliers has the answers right away, or Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. All our parks are under CSA Z614 because we do have also inspectors on our team. So all the playground structures have to be installed under that code. All provincial parks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Another question from Mr. Young. I've been told that site plan proposals cannot be placed for public review on the new website. How does one make a site plan PDF accessible? Good question. I don't have the answer to that. If you want to send me off a email, Mr. Young, I'll see about getting you a proper document. Maybe Colliers are the originators of that document. Maybe you guys have some technical capabilities on your end to share in that format, but we'll see what's possible. And I don't see any other questions from members of the public. If that's the case, and there's nothing to add from members, councils, or the administration, we will move on. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the meeting this evening. It's always a fun topic of discussion. We're moving ahead in the right direction, and we appreciate the hard work you guys are doing, and of course the hard work of the staff on moving this forward. So merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Merci. Have a good evening.
Merci.
Thank you. Good night.
So now we will move back to our report section. So we're moving to item 11C, 2020 financial report, report FS12 2021. The council receives report FS12 2021 dated May 3rd, 2021, and acknowledges receipt of the financial report for 2020. I'll open it up to 4 members of council. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, Monsieur Godin, anything to add to this report?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So essentially, this report, the same as financial information as shared with council, the same information that was with the financial statements, but just in a different format. So if there's no further questions, I can just highlight, maybe without going line by line, the high level highlights of the year. So I think there were 2 major impacts on the budget for year 2020. Obviously, there was COVID, which we saw had some significant financial impacts, and that the provincial government helped us with supporting. And also, the township did go through a lot of growth, so a lot more tax revenues. At the end of the day, what this allowed us to do was to cover our COVID losses, and also transfer an extra $126,000 to the COVID fund for future use if we need it in 2021. So that's a high level, and if there are any questions, I'm here to answer, and if not, that's fine as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Monsieur Godin. Members of council, any questions? Seeing, hearing none, c'est parfait. We'll move on to the next item. Item D, rapport annuel des frais de développement 2020, rapport FS 14-2021. Que le conseil reçoit le rapport FS 14-2021, daté du 3 mai 2021, pour information, préparé selon la section 12 du règlement de l'Ontario 82-98, en vertu de la loi de 1997 sur les redevances d'aménagement et autorise que le rapport soit d'information publique. Questions, comments, members of council? This is an annual report we get every year. Monsieur Godin, anything to add or highlight?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. No, I mean, essentially, like you said, this is an annual report that will be showing council every year. Again, it's information that's included in the previous report, but isolated for development charges as required by the Development Charges Act. So. Thank
you very much, Monsieur Godin. We will move on to the next item. Item E, 2021 final tax rate, report FS 15-2021. That council receives report FS 15-2021 dated May 3rd, 2021, and approves the proposed bylaw establishing the 2021 final tax rates for all categories, which sets a tax increase of 2.5% as approved by council with the 2021 budget. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Tarnowski.
Thank you very much. So I just want to confirm my understanding. So our rate has gone up a very slight bit. As a matter of fact, if I look back, it's been higher for quite a few years in the past. And so the increase itself, when we say 2.5%, that takes into account the increase in property values as well, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Tarnowski. Monsieur Godin?
Through Mr. Mayor. So Councillor Tarnowski, to answer your question, this year in 2021 is a little particular because of the COVID impact, which was due to reassess all properties in 2020, didn't do so. So there wasn't an actual phased-in assessment increase in 2021. So the 2.5% increase is pretty much applied on last year's rate to get this year's rate. And it does represent a 2.5 increase on the actual tax bill of the residents for the municipal portion.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other questions, members of council? Hearing none, seeing none, we will move on to the next item. Item F, Police Services Board report PIC 05-2021. That council receives report PIC 05-2021. Dated May 3rd, 2021, and approves the attached resolution. As recommended in this report, the composition of the Police Services Board for the County of Russell OPP detachment, which would be composed of 4 members of council, 3 community members, and 2 members appointed by the province, and would include the Russell Nation, Castleman, and Clarence Rockland municipalities. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson.
So if I understand right, because at the first time I read, I thought it was 4 of the 5 of us that were on the board, but it's really 1 per municipality.
That is correct.
And will it be the mayor, most of them, or it will be decided later on?
So historically, the police service boards and the current community police committee is the 4 mayors that attend. I think that is still the intention, unless council wishes to defer from that. But I think that'll be a discussion once this is approved by all the municipalities, make sure we're all on the same page. Did you want to add anything, Madame Bourdeau?
Well, I just want to clarify that presently the ministry is looking to have the composition only. So each municipality will decide which member of council sits on the board, and once the board is determined, then they will make the composition of of the members. So like it's mentioned in the report, that the each municipality will be represented by members of council, and then 3 members of the community and 2 members appointed by the province. So once we determine which member of council sits on the board, then the other decisions become the responsibility of that board.
Right. Okay. Other questions, members of council? So as to who will be the final representative from council, that'll be coming back at once the province approves this composition, and then we'll have that further discussion. So, okay, merci beaucoup, Madame Bourdeau. Prochain item G. Abandon de la branche Wade du drain municipal Kincaid, rapport ISPW 10-2021. Que le conseil reçoit le rapport ISPW 10-2021 daté du 3 mai 2021 et adopte le règlement proposé pour abandonner une portion de la branche Wade du drain municipal Kincaid. Questions, comments, members of council? Pretty self-explanatory in the report. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Non, aucun commentaire, Monsieur Maire.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup. We will go on to the next item, item H, which is the environmental assessment of Route 300 corridor, report ISPW 12-2021. That council receives report ISPW 12-2021 dated May 3rd, 2021, and 1, approves the recommendations of improvement for all 5 intersections, and 2, approves to issue the notice of completion, so to start the 30 days review period. I'll start with you, Monsieur Bourgon, if you want to give us a quick review of this, and then members of council will ask any questions they may have.
Juste mentionner que je me retire.
Oui, parfait. Merci.
Je recule ma chaise.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So the township in the last 10 years did lots of upgrade to the water system and the sewer system.
Sorry, Monsieur Bourgon. I'll just ask Conseiller Brisson if you could also close your camera as well, because members of council, we still see you, and members of the public don't. So just to be on the safe side, that's perfect. Thank you very much. That way there's no issue in the discussion. Merci. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So in the last 10 years, the township did lots of upgrade to the water and sewer system in order to accommodate all the growth that's happening right now in both villages. But their next step is to do the same type of improvement to our road system. So that's where it came to look at the improvement all the intersection of Route 300. So the first step was really to consult with the public and to try to come up with what would be the best solution to accommodate our full growth. So we did look, part of the EA process, it's really to determine what's the best option, alignment of, in our case, of alignment of runabouts to have the less impact on the neighboring properties, and also what's the type of improvement that will have least impact on the environment, traffic flow, maintenance, and operation costs to long term. So there are conclusion really runabout. It's the best way to go for a long term improvement to intersection. So in our case, we're showing a runabout at the intersection with Saint Guillaume and 300. Saint Pierre 300 and Limoges Road and 300. The other 2 intersection only shows a turning lane at this time. So the alignment differs just to have the less impact on properties. So once if council do approve the recommendation tonight, we'll have a 3 days review period from the public. So everybody that gave their name or affected by those improvements will get a notice by the end of the week, and they'll have 30 days to review the project file that's in front of council tonight. And if they do have further question, and if we receive no comments or nothing in that sort of 30 days, well, we'll start our design of those intersections.
Okay, thank you very much, Monsieur Bourgon. And just to confirm, since this is long-term planning, obviously we're taking into account all future development that's on the books.
Yeah, exactly. And originally, we were not looking at the intersection of Saint-Guillaume and 300, but because of the commercial development that's proposed and to line up with other improvement along that corridor, we added that basically fifth intersection in our study, just so we're ready and we can proceed with construction with that full corridor of Saint-Guillaume.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon. Questions, members of council? Councillor Tarnowski?
So I just want to double check just to make sure that I understand. In some of the cases where we are predicting that down the road we are going to use or need a turnabout. Roundabout. Thank you. I'm thinking turning lane. That's why. There was recommendations of adding a turning lane and so on. I'm wondering, is like, are we making decisions here tonight to say we're doing one thing or the other? Like, I like the idea of the roundabouts as the traffic grows, but I'm not crazy about investing in widening roads and stuff like that if we are going to go to a roundabout at some point. So I think I just want to be sure that we're doing that. And then the other point I had is in terms of the roundabout, there was plans. Sorry for one roundabout at the Limoges Road, and there were like 3 different plans. So I just wanted to ask: are we deciding which one? Are we going based on the recommendation? Or are you asking council to actually make decisions on each of those right now?
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Bourgon.
Well, the DEA process comes out with the preferred solution. So tonight, council is just to support DEA, but we still need to do there would be land acquisition, there'll be design to be done. So during design, there can still be changes done to those intersections. So there will be other point in time that council will review those specific intersection separately. So here it's really the public process and to gather feedback. If we are to differ from the preferred option when we do the design, then there's an amendment process to DEA, but that's a fairly simple process, but it's not set in stone entirely. So there's still some flexibility down the road with the design.
Okay. Councillor Tarnowski, follow up?
So I just want to understand then. So if I look at some of the preferred ones, where they say a roundabout down the road, are we now going to be investing in added infrastructure if we're going to move to a roundabout at some point down the road?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, if we are to purchase some land, as like you mentioned earlier, and we are aiming at the roundabout, it probably better to secure any type of acquisition at this time. And we are actually also reviewing our DC study, so it will be time for us to plan for any type of upgrade. So if we are thinking of the roundabout being the final or the ultimate construction, I think that's what we should look for as part of investment.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarnowski. So just follow up to that. So for example, I think there's 2 intersections where we're looking at turning lanes versus roundabouts, but we talk about roundabouts ultimately being down the road. Is there any way, do we have a time frame? Or I guess, how much will it cost? I know I'm just looking for general estimates here, but I don't necessarily want to invest $10 just to have it ripped away when a roundabout was 20. And now because we go that route, we're paying 30 overall.
Yeah, so that would, when we will start the design shortly, again, it doesn't mean that we're heading in construction right now, but at least the design will be ready. It's basically, we're looking at the amount of units. That would be our trigger. That's like the way we had it set up. As an example, once we reach 500 units of growth in Embrun, that will trigger the improvement of Saint-Pierre and 300 intersection. So at least by having all the design complete, we'll be ready for that. And to answer your question, obviously, to do a turning lane, if it fits within the current right-of-way, and we can proceed by mostly widening the road and just line painting, and the investment's minimal and gets us to another 10 years, well, that would be part of our analysis.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's where I was going, just wanted to make sure that we weren't, doubling the eventual cost and whether it was worth doing the roundabout design right away and forgetting the turning lanes. But no, if it's minimal and that's going to be part of the evaluation process, that's perfect. Other questions or follow-ups? So with that, anything else to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Non, je pense que le rapport là, résume assez bien tous les commentaires et ce qui a été fait à ce niveau-là. Donc, okay. Pour aujourd'hui, je n'ai pas d'autres commentaires.
OK, parfait. Merci beaucoup. With that, we'll move on to the next item. Conseil Brisson, you're welcome to turn your camera back on and join us. There you go.
C'est ça, j'ai fait. Oui.
Parfait, merci. So now we'll go on to the next item, which is item I, half masting and raising of flags policy, report CL04 2021. The council receives report CL04 2021 dated May 3rd, 2021, and approves the proposed bylaw to update the half masting and raising of flags policy and to repeal the previous policy adopted on December 12th, 2016 as bylaw 2016-152. Questions, comments, members of council? This is basically reviewing a 5-year-old bylaw and making slight adjustments. Madame Cameron-Laflamme, anything specific you'd like to point out or add?
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members. Like indicated in the report, like you said, it's an update, and it was mainly started because the fire chiefs had requested 2 things to be added. So that was the second Sunday in September for the Firefighters National Memorial Day, and also the provincial wide line of duty death for the province. And afterwards, we just updated the rest since it was over 5 years. So the clerk department made some research, and based on other half-masting and all that, that's where we came up with this.
Okay, thank you very much, Madame Cameron-Laflamme. If there's no questions, comments from members of council, then we will move on to the next item. Next item is item J, sondage de satisfaction des citoyens 2021 à venir, rapport CAO 04-2021, que le conseil reçoit le rapport CAO 04-2021, daté du 3 mai 2021, et fournisse des commentaires sur l'ébauche du sondage. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Tarnowski.
So question 13, it states that this survey will be completely redesigned in 2022. What should we consider for the new survey? That's the question. So this question, when I read it, if I was responding to the survey, I would feel, why am I answering this survey if they're going to redo a whole completely different survey next year? So I maybe just tone down the fact that we're starting everything from scratch with all new questions and stuff like that next year. Maybe just the way it's worded, I would say something like, we're reviewing the survey design next year. Do you have any comments or ideas? So that would be one point. And then I would ask if we can include questions around the library service and use of library in the township. I think that we do have a separate library board, but I think that it is a service that's supported by our township, and so it'd be nice to get feedback on that since we're doing this survey. And my final point or question was, in the demographic questions, can we ask around first language spoken at home? Is that something that we can do?
Okay, thank you very much. Monsieur Leduc.
So, Mayor, members of council, yeah, certainly the intent of redoing the survey was more this year. We're suggesting to council a new a new social media policy, a new communication policy. So therefore, we wanted to present that to council before to see what would the impact of the different vision for next year. So that's why we're saying that. But we can certainly tone down that question, certainly. As far as the library services, obviously, I don't know if the library is doing their own service quality or following up on their own issue. I don't want to mingle into their responsibilities. That's why I did not go there. If council tells me to do that, then I can consider that. But again, that should be their responsibility. And for demographics, we do have some stats regarding first language. If I don't have those for all households, I will add that question to the survey.
Okay. Just for clarification as well, Monsieur Le Duc, the survey will be available in both languages. So we will see how many people are responding in French and how many people are responding in English.
Yes, again, you could have a francophone choosing to respond to an English survey, though. So it doesn't really respond me to council Turnhouse's question regarding what's the first language at home. So I can certainly, if you don't have that data, I will add that on the survey.
Okay, parfait, merci. Councillor Ternowski.
Just a follow-up question on the library point. It's just that you know, from a library's perspective, the survey, it does have a really good reach, and whereas a library survey may be specific to library users, this would be a survey for all residents, like it'd be more open to all residents. So I think it'd be a very beneficial from a library's perspective, and sitting on the board with the library board, I can certainly open the dialogue there if there is interest in doing that. But I just think it would be good from a service perspective for all our residents in our community. It doesn't have to be long, it's just maybe 1 or 2 questions pertaining to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, members of council? Hearing none, I do have, go ahead, Monsieur Le Duc.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I will need direction from council to mingle in the library affairs if that's the case. So if council wants me to do that, then I'll have to see as far as what timeline do I have to give them before responding. And again, this survey is already 15 minutes long before responding. If we had more questions, then maybe less people respond to the survey.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Brisson.
Mais comme que conseiller Turnowski en parlait, d'ajouter 2-3 questions sur la bibliothèque, je crois que ça serait très approprié et très utile. Et que ça serait, moi aussi, je trouverais ça utile qu'il y ait au moins, sans en avoir beaucoup, juste une couple. Oui.
OK. Monsieur Le Duc.
Monsieur le maire, du conseil, peut-être que M. Brisson peut préciser peut-être quelles questions qui trouveraient utiles, parce que évidemment, moi, c'est pas ma gestion. Donc, peut-être le conseil ou encore le library board va faire part de ces questions par eux-mêmes.
So I'll just make a suggestion. We have a question too. It says, how satisfied are you with these municipal services? The library board presents a service. So maybe just add the library as the a safe question in regard to what people and I mean, I think what Councillor Ternowski was saying was about the reach. So maybe in the future, what we could do is if the library board decide that they want to have a survey that's more specific to them, it could always be shared on our social media pages to try and get as much feedback to that survey as possible. But would that be acceptable, Conseiller Ternowski, Conseiller Brisson? Just ask the simple question like the other departments?
Yeah, I think that would be great. That would be a great first start. Maybe down the road in the next few years, we can look at, doing that more in line together. But that would definitely be a great first start. Great suggestion. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Parfait. Monsieur Le Duc, I do have one. I would like one question. I'd like a question in regards to our council advisory committees. I'd like to know a big portion of the mandate of our committees is for public engagement and being sounding boards for the public. So maybe a question along the lines of, how familiar are you with council advisory committees or quelque chose de ce nature-là, Monsieur Le Duc? Je sais pas if you got thoughts on that or something that we're able to, make sure that, people are aware of our committees.
Yeah, certainly. That's a question we could add. I guess which committees are advisory, what are they, and how can people engage with them? We could ask that question in that survey, if that's the case. If council directs me to do that, Mr. Mayor, I'll do that.
Okay, would members of council be okay with that question? I think we all chair committees, so we'd like feedback from the public on our committees, right? I see thumbs up going up, so I think that's a direction for that one, Monsieur Leduc. Okay, any other questions, comments for Monsieur Leduc, or anything else to add, Monsieur Leduc?
Mr. Mayor, we didn't have that survey last year. We normally have a good response rate in our surveys, but hoping with COVID, even though it's going to take place in June and July this year, that there'll be sufficient response to help out with some actions that we need to develop for next year, or even for the end of the year. So I hope that there's a good public response to our survey. So we'll do up plenty of advertising on our social medias to engage or have the community engage into the survey. Okay,
merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leduc. No further questions. We'll move on to the next item. Item K, zoning bylaw amendment report PD 20A 2021. Vacant lots located on future Gamble Drive in Russell Trail subdivision. The council receives report PD 20A 2021 dated April 19, 2021 and approves the zoning bylaw amendment 2018-094 for blocks 97, 98, and 99 on Plan 50R 353 from residential 1 R1A to residential 3 exception 51 R3F3 or R353 to permit construction of apartment buildings and to limit the maximum permitted height on the subject property to 12 meters and not more than 3 stories. This is a report that we dealt with at the last meeting, but I believe it's coming back, Madame Tremblay. There's a little bit of new information, as well as we have timeline obligations under the Planning Act. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the changes to the report were done in yellow so that you could compare the difference between what was presented the last council meeting compared to what is proposed tonight. I have more information, so I don't know if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, if I go over the report with the proposed changes?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So again, as you go through the report, the recommendation didn't change from the planning department. So we just added information stipulating that the zoning change application was received on February 21, 2021 and was declared complete on March 5th, 2021. The application was filed by the applicant and the actual request from the applicant was to change the zoning from the property from residential 1 to residential 3. And the zoning amendment report, as you know, was presented on April 19 in front of council. And basically the decision that was made back then, it was to postpone the decision until the applicant provides more information. So in the recommendation, other option of the recommendation, members of council, I just adjusted the proposal. So basically you still have the same option of not to approve the proposed amendment to change the zoning from R1 to R3. You have the option to approve the applicant's request to change the zoning from R1 to R3 without restricting the height. You also have the approve the zoning change application by limiting the height to 3-story for the block 97 and 98 and to limit the height to 4-story for the block 99. As well in the information in the report, so every information for this description of the property remains the same. I added the information when you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, about the restriction under the Planning Act. So this is an important information, and that's why we've decided to bring back the information to council, basically because in the Planning Act it says that the applicant could appeal to the LPAC if no decision from council from the application, since once the application is submitted, if council fails to make a decision on it within 90 days of the receipt by the clerk of the application. So basically, the next council meeting would have been a little bit too late to meet the 90-day deadline. So basically, if we don't make a decision on that 90-day before the 90 days, since we've received the application, then the applicant would have the right to appeal to LPAT. If that would be the case, then the LPAT would make the decision. So the decision will not be made by council regarding the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
So the other information that I've included in the report is at the bottom. Unfortunately, I'll have to guide council because when the report was translated and converted, some of the new section were lost in, I would say, in translation, but they were not identified in yellow. So it's at the end of the report in the section discussion. So it's the last paragraph. So basically what we're saying is that the following council decision to defer the zoning bylaw amendment until plans of the proposed building be submitted to be reviewed against compatibility criteria. This report is to confirm that as the date of this report, we have not received any additional information. As per the Planning Act, if no decision is made in regards to this application, the applicant can file an appeal to the tribunal based on the fact that council failed to make a decision 90 days upon receipt of the zoning bylaw amendment application. If the applicant files an appeal of the no decision basis, the decision of the zoning bylaw amendment will be made by the tribunal. Okay. This report was submitted on Thursday. So Thursday afternoon, my report was gone to get approved with the changes. Thursday late, around 5 on Thursday evening, we received the email from Mr. Corvinelli, who's the owner of Block 97. I didn't include the information in the report since I didn't want to make any changes last minute. However, members of council were CC'd. I think you were mainly all in the report and not CC'd. Mr. Corvinelli submitted some elevation of the proposed building on Block 97. In the email, he submitted that he's proposing to have 35 units, that the 35 units will meet the density of 36 units per hectare. He was showing that he had 43 parking spaces that would meet the parking requirements. He was also mentioning that the building would be tapered 3-story building. So basically, it starts with the tapered means that it's going with less apartment on top, but at the end of the building, the way that we measured the building, it would meet the 3-story. So basically he's saying that he has clients for phase 1 that moved in this building in his development in 2007, and that they are willing to or waiting for the building to be built. And he's basically saying that he's comfortable with the 3-story on Block 97. We've also received an email this afternoon at just prior to this council meeting, I would say around 5:30. This email was sent by the owner of Block 98 and 99. So those are the 2 other blocks. Basically what the email was saying is that the owner is waiting on the soil report. However, boreholes confirm very good soil condition, that these blocks are likely the best blocks in Russell to support 5 stories and not have a typical very deep blue clay issues. Russell needs affordable rental today, and need will increase in the coming years. The greater the height, the greater the number of apartment, and the lower of the foundation and land costs attributed to each apartment. He's also saying that if the zoning is ultimately finalized at 3-story for Block 98 and 99, my plan is to build separately back-to-back towns. If the zoning is ultimately finalized at 4-story, I will consider rental apartments. If the zoning is ultimately finalized to 4 and 5-story, I'm much likely to choose rental apartments. Russell may assume that my rental apartment would be similar in design of what was presented on John Corvinelli's block, so the ones that were attached to Block 97 submitted by Mr. Corvinelli. He's also confirming in his email that I will not appeal zoning on a 3-story for Block 98 and 4-story on Block 99 to LPAT. and then he's basically, that's the email that we've received this afternoon. I also want to mention as well in the report that was submitted, if the current zoning bylaw right now allows for a maximum height for townhouse of 3 stories. So basically the limit of 3 story would only be for apartments in the zoning bylaw amendment exception. So I just want to clear that if they decide to build townhouse in the zoning bylaw, it's already limited to 3 story. The only 5 story would be applicable for apartment building. So I just want to make that clear. With my discussion with some of the councillors, that may not have been clear from the beginning, but if they decided to build 3 story on all the blocks, if they were to decide to build, townhouse on all the blocks, then the height restriction would not apply because it's already limited in the zoning in the R3.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
So basically, that's the only information that we added to the report that was presented in April.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Madame Tremblay. Madame Camré-Laflamme will be voting on this one separately, so we'll pull this out of the group vote, but I'll open the floor for members of council if they have questions, comments. Conseiller Brisson, then Conseiller Tarnowski.
C'est juste une clarification parce que je me rappelle pas par cœur. Je vois le diagramme en bas du rapport. Les deux, l'un à côté de l'autre, c'est-tu eux autres qui sont 97-98? Les deux qui sont contre Central Park?
Madame Tremblay.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Oui, Monsieur Brisson, donc les deux qui sont au coin de Gamble Drive et Central Park. C'est 97 et 98. 97 est celui qui est adossé au pond, puis 98 est celui qui est plus au nord, puis 99, c'est le bloc qui est complètement à l'extrémité est, le long de près de Edie et au bout de Gamble.
Puis là, c'était quel bloc? C'est M. Covenelli qui appartient?
Monsieur le maire, donc c'est le bloc 97. Qui est celui au sud de Gamble, qui est proche du pond.
So to confirmation is based on the emails we have from both developers, the 2 ones on Central Park Avenue, they're okay with those being at 3. And then the one at the end of Gamble Drive, they would be okay with at least 4. Is that my understanding?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And that's one of the options in your report, c'est ça?
Correct.
Okay, merci. Councillor Tarnowski?
Just a question on process and procedure here. So if we accept the exception and we agree on 3, 3, and 4, can you just confirm with me, there is still a process to ensure that suitability piece to the neighborhood, correct? Like but that wouldn't come to council, it would just go through your department, Madame Tremblay, is that correct?
Madame Tremblay?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Tarnowski. So the process would be under the site plan. So they would have to submit a site plan and then we would review the elevation of the building. And there's also provision in the zoning bylaw that mention about the setback. So basically right now, they would not be able to do a 5-story straight. They would have to do 3-story back up at the 3rd level by 2 meters and then continue to the 4th floor. So there's already provision for that in the zoning and in the official plan.
Thank you. Just to follow up then. So other than those like official kind of compatibility processes, like is there what other mechanism is there to ensure that compatibility? And I'm not directing this question because I think the developers would not make it compatible. Obviously, it makes sense for them to make it as nice as possible, but just to make sure that the developments are faithful to the rest of the community design. Like, is there anything? Is it like just in your department, like based on look? Is it an actual process, like certain other kind of restrictions that are in play?
Madame Tremblay?
So there's two major components. So the first one for site plan, for example, the neighbors don't have the right to appeal. So that's the main focus of this discussion here. The appeal process for site plan is not, the residents are not entitled to appeal site plan. So they are entitled to appeal zoning bylaw amendment, but not site plan. The second component of my answer is that yes, we do have criteria in design guidelines in our official plan that are pretty well listed. So some of them are part of the report. So you have height, mass, setbacks, making sure that it's compatible with surrounding. However, they're not bylaws. So obviously it's left to my department to kind of judge on shadowing, lighting, and everything else like that, compared to bylaw where we've implemented the setback for the third story in the zoning bylaw. That's a regulation, and if they defer to that, then they would have to proceed with a zoning bylaw amendment. Compared to the design guidelines, it's just a vision. It's more guidelines that we have in our official plan that it's not obligated. Most of the time, we're trying to impose that, but obviously, we're left the judge of it, basically.
Councillor Tarnowski?
But being a judge of it, does your department have control then in saying, no, we can't do this, or yes, we can do that?
It's pretty general, to be honest. For example, if we have doubt about shadowing, then we could request studies that would provide example of that it would not meet the shadowing concern. It's always a debate because it's not in a bylaw, it's just design guidelines. They're pretty good. We manage to be pretty fair with it, and usually that we have the cooperation with the builders. But like I said, it's guidelines, it's design, and it's not imposed as per a bylaw. It's most of the time when it's applicable, we're trying as much as possible to impose them, but at the end of the day, it's a negotiation between the township and the builder.
Right. And just to confirm, Madame Tremblay, if you impose something that the developer really doesn't like, he has the right to go to LPAT, and that's probably a scenario that would, potentially happen if there's a very difference of opinion on the site plan capability. So, I mean, as a department, you're well aware of the concerns of the residents. You're aware of the concerns of township or council, I should say. So, and I think that based on your professionalism and your past projects that have moved forward, I'm quite comfortable with your team in place to move forward with a site plan and having those decisions made. Any other questions, comments, Councillor Larin?
Yeah, I didn't know where we were going to make the comments, but obviously we wanted to make sure that that this gets separated, and I'll probably be moving a request to amend the recommendation, because if I'm correct, is restricted height for 3 stories on all 3 properties, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so
there'll be an amendment coming.
Yeah, so okay, I'll do that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this point in time? No. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item. Next item, c'est item 12, rapport d'un investigateur ou l'ombudsman, il n'a pas. Item 13, notice of motion. We do have a notice of motion. I'll just read it out. The notice of motion is moved by myself and seconded by conseiller Lorrain. This will not be discussed this evening. I'm just putting it as a notice of motion and will be discussed in 2 weeks' time. The notice of motion reads, whereas council and township believe in the importance of environmental stewardship, and whereas council relies on the input of its committees to help guide direction on important subjects that impact our residents' quality of life, and whereas the Environmental Advisory Committee mandate includes advising and making recommendations to council on environmentally related matters and practices within the township, and whereas in the past 10 years, the Environmental Advisory Committee has only made 13 recommendations to council, whereas of those 13 recommendations, not one recommendation made reference to tree coverage and/or green space improvement options, And whereas the mover and the seconder of this motion feel that the EAC should be making recommendations to council regarding tree coverage and or green space improvements. Now, therefore be it resolved that council forward the following tree coverage and or green space improvement ideas to the EAC for discussion and evaluation. And furthermore be it resolved that council encourages that the EAC take a more proactive role in advising and making recommendations to council on environmental related matters and practices within the township. The 4 ideas are: 1, what potential projects would be recommended if a 0.5% to a 1% increase in the 2022 budget would be specifically dedicated to improving tree coverage and or green spaces, and further consideration if that same amount would be reserved year after year moving forward. 2, the implementation of a tree replacement program similar to the City of Ottawa Emerald Ash Borer Replacement Program administered by South Nation Conservation. 3, the implementation of a program that allows the municipality to match resident donations to municipal tree planting efforts. And 4, a roadside restoration plan such as Lanark County's seeding and planting initiative. That is the notice of motion. It will be part of the next agenda package and will be discussed at the following meeting this month. Next item is item 14, question period on the meeting of the day. I see that we have one question in regards to item 11F, Mr. Charles Armstrong, 85 Castlebow Street. How will the 3 community members be selected from the 4 municipalities? Madame Bordeaux, I'll try to address this one. Phil, if there's anything you want to add, feel free. I understand there's only 3 community members being nominated, and there are 4 municipalities. That being said, there are 2 members appointed by the province that would live in one of these 4 municipalities. So, for example, if we had 2 of the members from appointed by the province that came out of Russell Township, then the 3 other members appointed by the committee would most likely come from the other 3 municipalities, making sure that there was at least all from the community members' perspective, or there would be at least 4 representatives of the public. 1 municipality would have 2. Is that 3 being community appointed, 2 being provincially appointed? Is that a fair estimate, Midley?
Yes. If you look in the report, the paragraph at the bottom, it says, we're agreed that the board shall be composed of 4 members of council, 3 members of 3 community members, and 2 members appointed by the province. Municipalities without the provincial appointee shall have community members representation. So, exactly.
Okay, so we'll make sure that the 4 municipalities are covered with the 5 members of the public. Okay, parfait. So it won't be a situation where you'll have 3 members from 1 municipality and then somebody being short on a community member. Okay, parfait. Thank you very much. I see there is no other questions, so we will move on to the resolution section, item 15. Resolutions, motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. So I need a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor, and then we'll be amending it to take out K. So moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
yes.
H.
Yes.
Is it H? Did I say the wrong one?
No, but I believe
Oh,
Councillor Brisson would like
Yeah.
H as well.
Okay,
That's what
perfect.
I was going to say.
All right, so I need an amendment to remove H and K, moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Conseiller Larin. All those in favor of removing those 2 items?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Okay, perfect. Those 2 items are now removed. We will vote on everything except H and K. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. Everything is approved. Now we will go to item H. Item H was the environmental assessment of Route 300 corridor that Conseiller Brisson had declared a conflict of interest on. So I need a mover and a seconder. I don't have much choice. Moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Tanoski. Questions? If none, call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. It is approved. So now we will go with item K, which was the zoning bylaw amendment report PD 28/2021 for the vacant lots located on future Granville Drive in the Russell Trail subdivision. So need a mover and a seconder to put it on the table, please. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Lorrain.
As for my comments from the last meeting, I'm not going to repeat them all again, but I'm going to make the amendment request to select option 3 in the other options, so that we can control the height on these properties in consideration of the confirmation of the developers that they're okay with those limits as well. I think that it's important that we work with our development community and with the public on this, and I think I think that would be a good compromise to the situation, and I think that moves us forward, and that's why I'm going to request that we move forward with option 3 of the other options.
Okay, so I'll just reread option 3 to make sure everybody is clear. Approve the zoning change application by limiting the height to 3 stories for blocks 97 and 98 and limiting the height to 4 stories for block 99. So we have that move by Conseiller Lorrain. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Tanoski. So that amendment is on the table. Any questions to the amendment? I just want to make the comment and reiterate what Conseiller Lorrain is saying. Right now, the developers seem to be happy with this scenario. Just so members of the public are aware, if members of the public are more than able to challenge this to LPAT, if it ever does go to LPAT though, there is the chance that the developers could say, well, in that case, we're being taken to LPAT. We want 5 stories on all the lots. And that is a risk. And not only a risk, but it's actually been, we've seen similar instances in the past in Russell Township where something like this has happened. So I think it's a very good compromise. So thanks for making that amendment, Conseiller Lorrain and Councillor Tanoski. If there's no questions, I'll call for the vote on the amendment.
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. So the amendment is carried. So now I'll call on the vote as amended.
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. I see that there was a last-minute question that popped in. It might have been because of the delay. So I'll just read it out. Jocelyn Leduc, 760 Limoges Road, under item 11H. And that was in regards to the Route 300 corridor. When will council be voting on the designs for the Limoges intersection? Monsieur Bourgon, peux-tu juste confirmer? There's a 30-day period presently. Now that council has approved it, members of the public will have 30 days to comment on it.
Exactly. So now that council approved or supported the EA itself for the preferred option, we will now issue the 30 days period review for public to review the full report. So everybody that put their name in or that's affected will get that notice prior to the 30 days period.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Next item is item 16, which is bylaws. So it's motion that council approves bylaws 2021-043 to 2021-046 inclusively, as well as bylaw 2021-40 for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. So this, just to make sure, 2021-43 was for the to amend the Recreation Culture Advisory Committee and the appointments and the correction in the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee appointment, just the name correction in the name there. The final tax rates, the abandonment of Wade branch of the Kincaid Municipal Bridge, the flags policy, as well as the zoning bylaw amendment on the vacant lots located on Campbell Drive. So that's the bylaws. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. Questions, comments, Councillor Lorrain?
One question and one comment, please. The question is by the zoning bylaw for 040 Gamble Drive, is that going to be updated with the proper one based on the resolution? Just want to make sure that one is updated.
Yep.
And the other comment is, I believe we're in 043, the appointments, that one of them is just a name correction and the other one is an actual appointee to a new member.
That's
so
correct.
I'd like to first off thank Mr. Nicholas Daou for his time on the committee, because I believe he's now leaving the committee or has already left the committee, and welcome in the person that's being appointed if all members if members vote in favor of that, to a great community leader, Jason Harps.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Conseiller Lorrain. Any other questions on these before we vote? Madame Caméré-Laflamme, you can confirm that the bylaw for 2021-40 will reflect the resolution of council?
Mr. Mayor, maybe it would be better if we deal with it separately, so this way we can indicate a note only for this one.
Okay, so we'll vote. Let's have an amendment to remove 2021-40, and we'll vote on that separately. So I need a mover and a seconder to remove it. Councillor Lorrain, Councillor Ternosky. Everybody okay with removing that one?
You, Mike Ternosky, yeah. We don't vote. That's not a vote.
It's just a vote to. It's an amendment to take that one out separate, like we did with the resolution.
But it is a vote.
It is a vote. Yeah. So I need you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Okay. So that item is removed. So we will vote on the other 4 items. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Ternosky, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Okay, and those 4 items are carried. Now,
Mr. Mayor, what's that, the vote for the 040?
No, ça c'était pour 43, 44, 45 puis 46.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you.
No, it's okay.
Juste une question, Monsieur le maire.
Oui, conseiller Brisson.
Je sais qu'on a déjà voté pour le nom de changer, mais quand je regarde dans le mien, Michael Ogutu, mais ils disent qu'ils changent avec la même chose. C'était quoi l'orthographe de différent?
Je pense que c'était une faute d'orthographe. Le E puis le O, c'était renversé ou quelque chose comme ça.
Mr. Mayor, it wasn't the Michael. It was A and the E that was inverted.
Oh, in Michael itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Because, okay, in the amendment I have, it's just that submitting, it's the same name. That's why it's not.
OK. Tu regardes-tu la version anglaise ou française?
C'était la version française, mais c'est en anglais. Dans le chose de bylaw, le 1, ça dit c'est Nicolas Daou qui est remplacé avec Jason.
Oui,
dans
si
le 2.
Dans la version anglaise, ça dit Michael Ogutu. With Michael Ogutu, c'est à cause le E puis le A il est à renverser sur la version anglaise.
En français aussi, OK. Je m'excuse.
Parfait.
OK, merci.
Merci. Okay, so now we need a mover and a seconder to put the Gamble Drive zoning bylaw or zoning amendment. Moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. So this is just to confirm, Madame Caméré-Laflamme, do you need more information from Madame Tremblay or?
Mr. Mayor, just maybe confirm, Ms. Tremblay just sent me something by email, so I believe this would be the amended bylaw. Maybe she can confirm to the public for that.
Yeah, Madame Tremblay.
Yeah, so the bylaw that was sent to the clerk is the bylaw to limit the height to 3-story for the block 97 and 98 and limit the height to 4-story on block 99.
Perfect, which shoots the decision of council in the resolution portion of the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we have a mover and a seconder. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Ternosky, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. It is carried. Thank you very much. Item 17, new business reports. We have none. Item 18, other business presented by council members. Under myself, Pierre Leroux, motion to reconsider and suspend the rules of procedure. It was moved by myself, seconded by Conseiller Brisson, and it reads as follows. Whereas section 15.14.2 of the procedural bylaw, member moved to reconsider states a motion to reconsider can only be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side or a member who did not vote. And whereas section 15.14.1, when can reconsideration be moved, states a option to reconsider has time limits and can only be made on the same day and in the same meeting the vote to be reconsidered was taken. And whereas the purpose of reconsideration of a vote is to permit correction of a hasty decision or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since taken of the vote. And whereas in the opinion of the mover, there is new information available that should be taken into account for consideration. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council suspends the rules of procedure in regards to sections 15.14.1 and allows a motion to reconsider the matter of report PR 03-2021 LED light exemption emblem today. So we have a mover and a seconder. So this is a motion to suspend the rules of procedure and allow for this motion to reconsider. So questions on the motion itself? At this point in time, it's basically only to reopen the discussion. It's not voting on the item itself at this point. So there's new information I'd like to share with council, but in order to do so, we have to reopen it. So I'll call for the vote if there's no questions to suspend the rules of procedure and approve the motion to reconsider.
Mike Ternosky, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. So that is open. So now we go back to the report itself. And the report was attached in our agenda for reviewing. In regards to the exemption, it was just because I had some concerns at the last meeting. I know during our RFP process, when we go through that process, there's individuals have to sign a conflict of interest form. And by going outside the RFP, that form was not being signed. And I wanted to make sure that form was signed because the contractor does have family that works at the township. So Madame Guitard, Monsieur Leduc, can we confirm that that form has now been signed by the contractor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, this form has been signed on April 26th.
Okay.
By the contractor.
By the contractor, indicating there was no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
That's correct. And obviously, our staff as well signed no conflict of interest forms. That's correct.
The staff had already signed this a few years ago. That's right.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Leduc, we had a lengthy discussion on this topic. I think that in the future, we'll just make sure that if ever there's a similar type of proposal or deviation from the policy coming forward, that we would make sure that those type of contracts are signed ahead of time so that it could be consideration when council makes its decisions.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. From the last discussion, yes, as you suggested, we will bring any conflict of interest form signed at the time a report is presented to council, if we choose to bring a recommendation of such to council.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further questions, Conseiller Laurent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I voted against this last time for the specific reason I'm not a fan of sole sourcing contracts. I understood the situation, but I still wanted to see it go to tender. That being said, I did receive some communication from some people in the community about it, and their comments were actually in favor of the actual awarding of the contract, if you will, to Mr. Clement, based on a lot of the factors that Madame Guittard had put in her original request, and her comments as to why she was making the request for an exemption. So at this point, I see that it's come back. I've received feedback from members of the community, and not just residents, but as well as business owners in similar industry, even suggesting that that it makes sense in this circumstance. So in light of that, I feel that it's important for me to reconsider this matter. So I'm glad that you did bring it back, and I will reconsider this item and vote in favor at this point, so that we can move forward with this. However, I'm still sticking to my my basis of, in the future, I want to make sure that we're going to tender. We have a policy in place for a reason, and we should be utilizing that policy as much as possible, and only coming to council for an exemption when it's absolutely the last thing to do. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you very much, Conseiller Laurent. Monsieur Leduc, vous avez un commentaire?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, to Councillor Laurent's point, yes, we do have a policy, and the policy also calls for sole sourcing. It's also possible, so it's not it's an exception, but it's certainly part of the policy also.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, members of council?
I'd just like a recorded vote for this, please.
Yeah, sure. So we'll have a recorded vote, so I'll call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get the mover seconder for the motion to...
Excuse, je pensais que c'était la même mover and seconder que le... Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so I'll move it. Conseiller Brisson, second it. You're okay with that? Yes? Okay, so mover and a seconder. I'll call for the recorded vote.
Mike Tarnowski against.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. The next item on the agenda was a email that I received from the ministry for consultations to strengthen municipal codes of conduct. Members of council have seen the letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This is in regards to consultations for strengthening accountability for municipal council members. There is a survey available for all members to comment on. However, they do identify that they would like one member of council to participate in a online or by telephone session. I am interested in doing so. I know that Councillor Saucier sent a message in email. She was interested as well, but I'm leaving it up to council to decide who you'd like to have that represent at that meeting with the ministry. So looking for comments.
Can we have the two?
No, the letter states specifically one person. It says, please identify one member of your council to participate in this session. So Councillor Tarnowski and Councillor Laurent.
Just to clarify, so two people are interested in going, including yourself and Councillor Saucier. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm considering that you're the mayor. I would say you should do it.
Okay. Thank you. Like I said, I just brought it to the table. That's they were asking. I'm not sure if any other if one of you three are interested. Nobody shared that information, but I know Councillor Saucier mentioned it in an email she sent earlier today. So, Councillor Lorrain, you had a comment?
I know we spoke briefly about this today, so I'm fine with you being the representative for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think it falls in line with the role of the mayor, speaking with the government for that stuff. But I do encourage everyone to please make sure that you are filling out the survey, because I think it is an important document. I think all members of council should have a say in that information. So perfect. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the next item. Public consultations. There are none. And we're moving into closed session. So pursuant to section motion to move into closed session meeting at the hour of 8:15 p.m. to address matters pertaining to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 chapter 25 to consider matters relating to 1. Sale of land in the industrial park, a verbal report. Section 2 had already been removed at the beginning of the agenda. And item 3, closed session meeting minutes of the regular council meeting dated April 19th, 2021. So I need a mover and a seconder to go into closed session, please. Moved by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Tanoski. All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, yes.
Andre, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We're going into closed session in a few minutes, so we will see you there. For those members of the public who are not familiar with this process, the law permits council to go into closed session away from the public eye to discuss specific items. Once we are done that, we come back out of closed session, we report out of council, and then we terminate our meeting for the day. So merci beaucoup tout le monde. Have a great night, even for those who aren't sticking around. And we are now in closed session. Merci. Welcome back, everyone. Bienvenue. We're just waiting for one member of the administration to join us, and then we'll get some more information. Madame Caméré-Laflamme, we are at the item 20B, résultat de la séance à huis clos.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so we're back at 8:36. So for the first item, council was briefed on the subject, and as a result of the closed session, there will be a motion presented for council's consideration in a minute. And number 2, we did not discuss. And number 3, the closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated April 19, 2021 were presented and adopted as amended. There was minor changes to them.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madame Caméré-Laflamme. So now the resolution or the bylaw to be voted on?
That council proceeds with the agreement to sell land and adopts a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign all documents to effectively enact this agreement of purchase and sale. Motion that council approves bylaw 2021-047 for first, second, and third reading as follows. Bylaw 2021-047 being a bylaw for the sale of land to 9204806 Canada Inc., which is Clôture Régionale, for $25,000, representing 1 acre more or less of land in the 417 Industrial Park.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madame Caméré-Laflamme. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. I guess, sorry, Conseiller Brisson's having a hard time connecting. He hasn't connected yet, but we have quorum, so we'll continue. So any questions on this bylaw? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
Jamie, yes.
It is carried. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 21, confirming bylaw. That bylaw 2021-048. 048 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on May 3rd, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
Jamie, yes.
Thank you very much. It is carried. Our next meeting of council will be on Monday, May 17th. And that's it. We're adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Councillor Brisson did apologize. He couldn't reconnect.
Not a problem. Thanks.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée à tout le monde.
Bonne soirée. Salut.